looks like maybe everyone's in. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the webinar for today. A lot has changed, and with some interesting changes on the internet, they may happen sooner than we were originally planning. So let me kind of get back to something here real quick. And sorry, jumping around here a little bit. So let's go ahead and jump in for the agenda for today. So there's a big update on the UI, and I wanted to get this out before it started appearing. Unfortunately, some folks have already seen some of these changes, and we're getting some big questions. But they're for the they're really good. I like them, and I'll get into why here in a little bit. And there's a few advanced features. They're actually old features, but they're advanced features, and they are in the online version of Oasis, including a whole bunch of new stuff that I'll be able to touch on pieces of anyway. We'll go into translating documents. There's been some big changes there that are important. And then just a quick update on the reports. Last webinar, I talked a lot about reports and all the big changes over there. There's even more changes happening, and anyway, just give you a status update. And then we have some recommendations for desktop users. In the past, there's been not a real solid direction on what to do next for desktop users considering online, but that is changing quick now, and I'll get into what that means here shortly. So, as usual, if there are any questions, just pop a note into the little chat section over there. Trinity will yell at me, or if there are any issues real quick, or basically something I need to go over right then. But anyway, if you have questions now or later, pop them in the chat, and we're always here if you have other questions. So let me get started. All right. The UI update, especially for the projects section inside of Oasis on the online version of Oasis, dated from 2020. So basically, when the pandemic came out, there was a push to get the project editor stood up. It was actually existed a bit before that. During the pandemic, we stood it up, and some folks started using it. It was kind of an interesting thing there. So the tech was it's about 6 years old. The technology that we had access to in a standard browser, not one that we pumped up or special, you must use this version of whatever browser, really, there were a lot of limits. But about 2024, most of the browsers had all the tech in them that we needed to run Oasis. I'll be able to talk a little bit about that, but it gets pretty nitty gritty in the tech if you want on there. So long story short is last year we had a push to really get all the features that are in desktop Oasis into the browser. And we effectively, or affectionately, as I like to say, we broke the browser. That has changed, and through a lot of work, a lot of testing, a lot of simulation, we finally got a mix that works well inside the browser. And a lot of that really is kudos back to the browser folks. They finally got the tech we needed in there. There's a new look and feel. We've had a design out for a while, and I'll get into this here real quick on there. And a lot of it really has to do with that, as far as just how it looks and the way it functions and everything like that. So we're able to draw that, and then a lot of AI features. So, and by the way, it's built for AI. We're using AI to do this stuff. It's really fun. So let me show you what's going on here. So this is the Oasis home, online version, and let's go ahead and skip straight into projects real quick. So inside of projects today, I've stood up a couple of projects just to kind of keep this fairly short, and we get into the details here. And let me just jump into one of them real quick. And what you'll see real fast is it looks a lot different. So in my mind, it actually looks more like the desktop version of Oasis in a lot of ways than it does for the online version. Now we still have this read-only mode that starts up on this, and as soon as I click on the edit here, it actually loads the bill of material in here. There's a lot of little details I'll get into here real quick. One of the biggies is just the whole responsiveness and the ability for it to jump around and move within the system is really a lot different. And that really goes back to what we had to do inside the browser trying to make it work. And you can Google this stuff. You can probably get a gist of what we did in there. But there's really has been a lot of changes inside the browser tech. So with that, we were able to do a lot of little things as far as just being able to move around and take a look and see what's going on here. So let me jump in a little bit. By the way, this I'd like just clicking around this thing because it is that fast. The main thing, and I'll show it real quick, and the reason why I'm excited is I've been out training people on site, and a number of us have been training new users and actually existing users with the desktop only version. So we have more and more groups that are desktop only, or I'm sorry, online only, not no longer have the desktop side of it. And part of training this in the past used to be, yeah, it works a little bit better in desktop. That's not the case now. It just feels right in here. And I'll get into some of the details. A couple of things that are important for the new version is the ability to go in and actually get rid of a few of these columns. By the way, you can do it that way. There's just a lot of little features in here that you kind of expect with Oasis to make it run smooth, make it feel right, if you will. And I can go in and make changes, and everything's there as you'd expect. There are a couple of other things that are kind of neat. You have the ability to collapse this up and actually get a few more lines out, because really in a browser setting, every little bit that you can get inside this screen, the better off you are, to a point. In other words, if we compress too much stuff, all the totals and whatnot, then it gets really hard to use. It looks kind of funny, but that's the downside to the browser. Is there's just a lot that they're going to take up just running the browser, if you will. So, all right. That's just kind of a real quick once over inside the system. The rest of it works as you'd expect. So a lot of little features and changes in here. So little drop downs work. It reprices and everything in there. So it looks like I do have some price leveling. So a lot of little details in there as well.
Hey,
All
Brian, we do have our first question asking, is this available?
So I'll get in the availability shortly. We were going to wait until the 11th, so that was going to be a magical date. But the powers of the internet have made some changes where we may actually have to make this available to the online users probably over the next few days. So we're trying to assess that. Basically, there's been some technology changes that are forcing us to make a change. So long story short is this is already available for the beta users. It's we're trying to wait for the production users until the 11th, but we'll have more of that here in a second. So any other questions on that one? Because that's a good question. All right, rest of it is as you would as you expect here. There's a lot of the standard features here, being able to move rows up and down, and all the little details here as well. So let me think. And by the way, the layouts button. So this is probably the one area I wanted to kind of touch on real quick. And that is when you get into the tool section, we did do a drop down here, and this allows us basically to hit all the standard features you expect. Spread profit and a few others. I'll get into those a little bit, but they're all accessible through the tools menu. Now, the other thing that we did do just for individuals who've been using the system for a while is the menus up here pretty much in the order that we had in the past. So if you're familiar with desktop Oasis, all this is available here on the left-hand side, or basically the menus at the top. So works the same layout. All the tools are in here. I'll get into checkpoint here in a minute. That's a popular one, and a few other details. So now, one thing that I did, let me think. I'm going to stick a little bit to my agenda here because I have a tendency to jump around. The AI stuff I'll get into a little bit later. All right, so let's get into what I'll call advanced feature spotlight. There's a lot of features in Oasis, and what we got into is everyone wanted their feature that they wanted to be in the system, and any one that was missing was, kind of a showstopper, because you kind of build processes around these features in the system. So one of the items I'll jump into here is spread profit. So I like this one because it's just a large bill of material, but when it comes to showing spread profit, I like to have a little bit smaller bill of material just so you can see what's going on there. So I'll go ahead and jump back to the project section. And oops, I have a question there.
She might not do anything in that space.
I think it's a user I need to mute.
Okay.
But we do have a few questions. Some
Okay.
I will save because I think you're going to get to it. But one is this available for distributors? Can you show submittals? Does copy and paste work in the web version?
Okay. Yes, copy. So distributor version, yes. As a matter of fact, there's a number of features in here that do help a lot with the distributor version of Oasis as well. Submittals, I'm not really geared to show that today. I'm going to show a lot of other pieces in here. I want to just have a whole conversation with submittals by itself because there's been a lot of changes there in addition to everything else. But right now, mostly the project editor for today. By the way, a couple of things here. So I'm in the system right now, and this actually helps a little bit with the copy paste. I'm actually glad that was asked. So I can actually go down through, do a copy, And by the way, this is a paste rows. By the way, if you haven't figured this out before, this is true in Desktop Oasis as well. If you do a copy, one thing that you might want to do is actually do a paste rows. Now, if you don't, then what it'll do is it'll take the cells that you have highlighted, and I just pulled the catalog number there, and paste them. Otherwise, if you do a paste rows, it'll go through and paste the entire row object, and that's kind of nice. Which, by the way, oops, that was the wrong bill of materials. So what I'll do is I'll hit cancel. Yes, I want to revert, and I'll talk a little bit more about what's going on here in a second. So what we did, and this was a conversation we had with a couple of our users that are sitting there going, yeah, we need the save and close button back. So when you start making changes to your bill of material here, let me put something in here. Yes. You'll get the standard save and cancel buttons that we had in desktop. They do work, and I wanted to touch on this real quickly, but they work a little bit differently. One question I had when I was out training on site from a user was, well, what happens if I do a go back or a go forward, or and you basically jump around the system using the navigation bars as opposed to save and close and all these others. And the hard reality is it doesn't matter. And that's what we've tried to focus on in Oasis is if you close the lid on your laptop and run off, it's going to work. But if you do use the buttons that we have, it'll work as well. The main thing you need to know with save and cancel is when you start this edit session here in the morning, let's say you walk in and you're just working along, it'll keep your session alive. In other words, it'll keep this bill of material where you can cancel out most of the time. Okay, now I'm biting my tongue here a little bit in that if it's hours in the system and your internet goes wonky or something like that, it could choose to auto save, if you will, and that is the changes will be committed to the server, and it's as if they were there. Now I'll show you another trick you can do here in a second if you really want to get deep into bill of material and you want to save it. But in general, it works pretty much like the desktop. I get fooled sometimes because I'm trying to not talk about the tech behind here. But essentially, when you do a save, that's the end of the session. But do realize that as you're typing along here, it will auto save in the background or keep pieces in the background. So if your browser closes, if your internet goes away or whatever, when you come back into it, everything will be in the system. And we do checkpoints and revisions. So if you have to go back to a prior release, we can do that. But in general, just save and cancel, and it takes care of the rest. Even if you lose internet, it should work pretty well. All right, hopefully no questions on that one. It's hard to describe without just using it really. The other popular item out there that I wanted to get into, in some of these features I chose for today were not only common questions that we had when it concerned the online version of Oasis and how to migrate to it, but they're also important with some of the new tech that we'll show here after a bit. And really it boils down to how can I control the bill of material if I'm going in and trying to use a new feature, or I'm trying to use AI to do a big change to my bill of material and I want to chicken out or anything like that. And then that's one thing that you can do is when I get into some of these AI things, you can always cancel and toss those changes, if you will. But another feature that's real common is if I go into tools, checkpoints, save checkpoint, I can give it a name. It's like before I did a thing. Okay. And whatever. It's just whatever you want to call it. You know, it was like before I did a load of a quote from a factory, okay, or before I pulled in an addendum or whatever. So it allows me to go back into this bill of material and revert it. So let me just kind of do a couple of changes real quick. Let me just do a D here. So I'll do a copy down. That's pretty common if people use that. So anyway, like I said, it feels like Oasis. A lot of these features you're used to using, they just kind of work in here. But on those, if I look up in my bill of material and go, whoops, wrong project, and because I did by the way, if I did a whoops, wrong project, if I do a cancel, it'll toss my changes. But what I'll do instead is I'll go to Tools, Checkpoint, and I can restore from that checkpoint, and there you go. It'll go ahead and reset it. By the way, I had a couple of saves on here as well. But anyway, save and cancel, that's powerful for being able to control your work. Checkpoints, being able to use those to control your work is also a very, very old but very popular solution to making big changes to the bill of material. So spread profit's another one that's real good. So I came over here really because I wanted to show spread profit. And let me go in here real quick. I'll do the good old 10% long on here. That basically took my sell price, marked it up 10 points long, dropped it in level one. I look up my bill of material here and I say, oh, it's level one is $8,000. I think I can sell it for 10 grand. All right, so let's do this. So what I'll go and do is I'll go to tools. I'll say spread profit. I'll go in here and do the 10,000. Yep, did it right. So it's going to take $1,600 and throw it on level one to selected rows. By the way, I can go through here, and this is another common one. I can say, hey, I just want to select one brand or another. Now, watch what will happen in the background is that changes things a little bit as well. If I just select that one brand, I only get the total for that one brand. So now I'm marking up basically that portion of it. And that gives me the capability of saying, okay, I'm going to take $4,000 and place it on that one brand and take the other 6,000, I guess, and put it on the second brand. So it gives you a little more control, but it's all off that select button. And this was another feature that it was on desktop that we didn't have in online for a while. And it is now. I can select one brand, both brands, however I want to do it. Whatever the result is, as far as that selection is, it's going to total it up, and then I can either put the profit in there, or I can give a total for what I want those lines to be marked up too. So any questions on that one? It's an old feature. I didn't want to get super deep into it, but it is an important one.
Not specifically on that one. We did have one or two questions actually. The first one is there an autosave feature? So back on that save. And the second question would be asking about manufacturer integrations.
I'll cover the manufacturing. Oh, I did something funky right there at the end. I double clicked when I shouldn't have. More on the manufacturer integrations here in a bit. I did an oops here and I went up to 10 grand. Now, auto save feature. So every time you do something in online, it does what we call it does a checkpoint is the best way to explain it. So if I simply key in something like I did all this work with the spread profit tool, I can always do a undo. So that's this button here, or your Control Z if you want to do that. And that's where I messed up. And I keep doing my undo, and we'll go all the way back here in a second. All right, cool. And for some reason, it's not updating my header up there. I'll just do a screen refresh on that one. So that's my oops right there, where I did something else. I'm looking at the wrong column, I think. Look at the wrong column. Undo. There we go. All right, so I'm basically level one now. So basically going through all these little pieces here just allows me to go through and there we go, remove. Let's see, going back. Every time I do a change, so every time I key something in or do one of these, it does do a little checkpoint in there, and it auto saves to the database both. Okay. And probably the better answer towards the end is when you hit save, it gets rid of all the undos. Basically, all the undos go away. And at that point, it's just committed to the database. I hope I said that right. It's hard to explain. Best to kind of play with a little bit. All right. Trinity, any other questions on there? I think you said two.
Nope, I think you got them both. The manufacturer connectivity, you said we'll touch on later, and the autosave. We did have one, and I answered it in the chat, but I'll cover it here real quick. Somebody asked, can you close without saving on purpose like you can in desktop? My explanation in the chat was just the cancel works the same as closing out in desktop.
Yep. That's your chicken out button. And I'd forgotten about it, and then I got kind of yelled at by a user, and was like, well, I want to go in and play with some pricing ideas. I have this thing I want to do in here, and I'm trying to, be, I'm in a tight scenario where basically they were trying to move some money around what it is because they were kind of in a tight spot. And anyway, they go in and do a little bit of work and they want to chicken out or cancel as opposed to having to do a checkpoint or anything else. So, but yeah, that works the same. Just hit cancel and it's like it didn't happen. Okay. All right. I think I got that. Let me go back to my notes real quick. All right, so part history. We already did the spread profit in there. Part history's just kind of old. I don't really know why I put it in there, to be quite honest, but let's do it anyway. So I go to tools, and I'll do let's see, part history. Catalog history. We keep changing the names of it, and unfortunately, I still use part history. But catalog history, it's in there, and it works pretty much the same. You can click on it, show the transaction, which bumps you to another. Well, that's the same one. Bumps you to another bill of material, or you can pull the price in, or you can use the item basically pulling into your bill of material. Now, couple other tricks in here that I think are important is I can go in and start doing approximate search in here. So by default, it uses, you can turn it on or off because sometimes the stars are used by some groups to indicate unknown voltages and color temps and stuff like that. So what you can do is just leave it turned on and use the star, say, hey, anywhere here, I want to show any matches you happen to have in the history. And that can be in the middle of the catalog number, at the end, it doesn't matter. And that becomes our wild card, if you will. The other thing we do is also within 365 days, that's the window that you can look at the history in there. And then, obviously, price increases and everything like that is the reason why we don't normally do that. And then you look at whether you want to pull it from quotes or orders. And for the groups that have multiple work groups out there, in other words, your multiple offices, you can utilize this to show those different offices you happen to be in. Okay. All right.
All right, Brian, we do have some questions. One from our own. Tony's asking if F4 works.
Let's find out. I haven't tried that one yet. All right. Oh, yeah, I know what's going on there. F4. My keyboard's funky, so F4. There you go.
All right. And then somebody asked.
Escape works too.
Nice. If F2 works.
F2. I don't know that one either. Let's find out. F2. Oh.
I will also link in the chat the keyboard shortcuts for Oasis. I'll put that link in the chat shortly. And then one last question. If you're entering a contact, who is a one-time person you are quoting? Is this now saved in the contacts?
Oh, let me think. One time only. Oh, in the it must be on a new. Let me see. You're probably printing to. I have to think about this one. I don't know if they have that. That may be actually one thing that we need to get Ryan to look at. Let me think. It's probably a file send, and they're probably sending on probably to a. Wait a minute. Close. Yeah, he doesn't have the anonymous thing in here. So we found one that we don't have.
Thank you. We'll get this added.
All right. Projects. I'll go that way. Doesn't matter. All right. So let me go this way. Sorry. Go back in there where I was at. All right. Whoa. Okay. So I got my part history repricing. That one, I don't have enough price lists. Had a kind of a headache this morning and tried to get a few things done. I'll try it real quick. I don't know if it'll work because I don't have my pricing all set up properly in this database. I had to change databases basically. But let me try this. So if you go to tools and there's a let me see, reprice tool in here. This is neat especially for anybody who has connectivity, which I'll get to here in a minute. But the main thing we're trying to do here is give you the capability of identifying the different types of pricing that you're going to pull into the system and refresh it. So let's say 6 months later, it's time to requote this thing on V27 or whatever it is, and there's been price increases. How do you go about that? So what I'll do is I'll select level 1, I guess, and that will work. And always clear. And then some of this I can get deeper into with a regular training on it. But anyway, I'll hit update, and it'll update. There was a couple of things that it did update here, and it looks like it just pushed them back down. It didn't have a price, so it didn't use let me back up a step. So I told it to use level 1. I originally had a 10% markup on that, and what it was able to do is anywhere it has a has a price. It actually repriced it using the current price in the price list, which is what I already had. But I cheated on these other 3 this morning because I was trying to get everything put together, and my pricing is out of date. So it will not use, the reprice tool will not use out-of-date pricing. It simply is a no-no. So that will force you to basically go back in and update that price list, or give us a call if there's a manufacturer connectivity. But if you haven't used that before, that's a really nice tool to go back in and reprice part or all your bill of material. And typically these are the columns you normally load your pricing into. I know some groups will use level 1. Most people use the default sell price is where you end up landing your initial price in there. Again, depends upon your process before or after the markup on there. So Probably need to do a full training on that with somebody and produce that video out there. So any questions off that? I know it's kind of back and forth because I didn't set it up properly. It didn't. Okay. All right. So checkpoints. I already did that and save and close. Hey, I've already been through the bulk of those. All right. So any questions I've missed? Otherwise, I'm going to jump to the next topic. Okay. So translating documents. So we started doing document translation about a year ago, and the initial update we had to include the desktop version of Oasis, and unfortunately, it's not as easy doing that on the desktop version. There's just more capabilities now with the browsers and some of the tech out there. So bite my tongue a little bit, you can do it, but it's a little harder. It's the best way to explain it. So what I want to do is show you a couple things. First of all, I have kind of my test things over here, my test documents they're not really my test ones, the ones I typically show. And one thing I have here is just a little document. Wrong one. I don't want to do it O2O this time. I want to show a PDF. By the way, O2Os work, that's fine. Those of you with manufacturers that send XMLs from their data systems, we process those normally as well. But here's a quote response from a factory. Again, this is just a test quote in PDF format. And this works. I was out training with a group, and man, they were sure happy when they saw this because they don't have to copy paste all the catalog numbers back from their factories. So how does it work? Main thing I wanted to show on this is when you drag and drop in the new version here, you end up having a couple of options. One is you have a pricing option and a bill of material. If you're getting a price from a factory, whether it's an O2O file, an XML from a manufacturer's data system, a PDF from a factory, or let's say you're just sharing pricing with a rep that you're partnering with, on a project, a spec and destination reps. You want to go to the pricing side here, and it'll go ahead and hit the server over there. It'll translate all the data and load in through the process. So this is kind of what we've had for a while. And this part worked well, and I'll explain why we split this up a little bit. Let me just go ahead and pull this in. By the way, I'll go and do the import. Typically, you get the stop and read thing that we've had forever. And then I didn't get the question and answer. It says, hey, can you map the brand that I have over here to the brand that is in your database? You'll get those standard questions the first time, and I'll kind of remember from there. So you can do the merge with quote. I didn't have this on this particular bill of material, or I can just say append to it, just like the desktop version. And the only difference is this came from a PDF and it'll pull everything in. So pricing didn't come in that time. Normally the pricing comes in. I didn't select a column. I won't do that again. Normally you want to select a column saying, hey, I want to put my pricing in the cell level 1, level 2. So I forgot to check that this time. All right. So that's my bill of material. It pulls in from the pricing side. Okay. Question?
Yep, we have a few. So the first one being, if you use level 1 to update, will it automatically reprice cell?
Okay. Depends. And typically, I would say no. So when you, and I'll have other questions on that. That's probably on a reprice question. Is that where
Yes.
when that came in? Okay. So on a reprice, if you're doing a reprice, let me go in that real quick. Reprice. Once you get first things first, this is one of those tools, and most of these are the type of tool where you want to play with it a couple of times, go, okay, yeah, I get what's going on now. But typically what I do if I'm out training, I have things a little bit better set up. And in most cases, they'll have the sell price update. And I'm biting my tongue because I know there's different pricing strategies in there. So let's say we're out Midwest, we're not in a big city with union jobs, a lot of markup. Okay, so if I'm out with a group that's like here in Arkansas, what I'll end up telling a lot of folks is you'll want to probably update the base price only, because a lot of groups will have a markup between base and sell, or let me back up a step. No, these two are usually locked together in that case. I'm just got back from a big city, so I'm still in kind of big city mode. But typically base and sell are locked together, and then you do a markup outside of there off your initial quote, and it'll reprice those columns. So basically, it's just like you keyed in the catalog number fresh on the bill of material, and it'll go ahead and mark everything up. So I don't know if I answered the question properly on that one because I have questions for that person.
What I'll do is I will open a ticket for us to talk more in depth with them. The next question is, do you still recommend using new bid like, or will the checkpoint feature replace that process?
Ooh, that's been one of the arguments I've had from customers for, I don't know, a decade or more. So I have people that swear by new bid like, and I have people that swear by checkpoints, and I think they both have their purpose. Generally speaking, here's what I advise on. New bid like, anytime the project changes uh, somehow, I'll call that. So you're doing a VE, it's changed between, customers. You have a new round of bidding and a big bill of material change or something like that. That's typically a new bid like, mostly because you can take a look real quick by just clicking on the other tab real quick, wherever it's at. You show those may not remember this. New bid like. Yeah, next. Great. Which I like that better on the new system. So it gives you the ability to real quickly just go back and take a look at it. And even in here, you can throw it on another screen in another tab. That's actually another thing that's real neat is I know it's something you can do in the desktop version, but you can do that here as well. What I like about the what I like about the checkpoints goes to if I'm in here about to make a big change, kind of like that spread profit. So it's maybe I just did a new bid like I do a save checkpoint, and I'm in there doing a what a mentor of mine, I guess, mopping up the quote. And the way she described that is perfect. And that is, I'm going to do a whole bunch of things on there. I might be taking a look at the quote request from the factory. I might be doing a spread profit. I might be moving some money around or anything like that. And what's nice about that save checkpoint is once I get the bill of material where I like it, then I can start working on it some more. And what's nice about it is I can go home and come back and go, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm going to go back to that thought that I had that has that name and that checkpoint in and go back to it. So I don't know if I'm completely describing this, but generally every time you have a new VE or a big change externally, that's where I see the new bid like works, and then those checkpoints just work for internally. I'm just trying to organize my work, my thoughts. All right.
All
Any other
right.
questions? Yeah, that was a goodie, but
We have
boy, that's a philosophical conversation.
one more, and I answered this a little bit in the chat, but is there a benefit to using Mac or Windows browser? You know, what I said in the chat is it all depends on your internet speed. No benefit for browsers, but if you have a different take
Max
on that.
internet speed. I'm not sure internet speed. What was the question one more time? Because I missed something there.
Is there a benefit of using a Mac browser versus a Windows browser?
Doesn't matter. At this point, a couple things are going on. First of all, what we've done with the new UI that we have is there's very few, if any, UI elements that the browser is injected in there. We basically have taken control of the look and feel. And what I've found is for the popular browsers, and I'm gonna list them out here for a second, they they tend to have a real good WebKit implementation without getting in the weeds there. And their JavaScript is well delivered with some other tech that we require. So generally, Edge, Safari, and Chrome have been very little, if any, issues on them. Every so often, you'll see something wonky with one of them. That's just kind of the way it goes. But I've even seen with the second tier browsers that they work quite well as well. So now you're getting a Firefox and some of the others, and they seem to work well with this system. We've really tried to make sure that we're using the most widely available tech, but we have had to push the tech. And what I found is if you have an old PC, and I have an iPad, by the way, from 2019, and if I try running this part of the system in the 2019 version of the iPad running Safari, it'll crash the browser. But in general, if you're using anything that's over the last couple of years has been updated, you're probably okay. So hopefully I answered the question well. That's getting the techie stuff. Any other questions there?
Last one so far. Can a quote have a version number for a modification rather than creating a new bid like with a different number?
We stayed with the tech that we've had forever on that one. Ever so often I go back and try to revisit that one, and I want to think about that again because it's not off the table. But right now we're just sticking with the way the quote numbering process worked in desktop. So we don't want to change too much for folks right out the gate. So I do want to revisit that, but not at this time. Okay. Other questions?
That is it
Okay.
so far.
All right, so went through quote responses from like a factory and job specs from another rep. Basically, they're kind of the same thing. But the biggest thing that we were trying to do is, and I just created a real fast little project over here. So then looks like somebody else is in here playing. Oh, that was me. So what I'll also do is show you how to do a drag and drop from the system. I wanted to start with a blank bill of material on this. Just quickly roll it through. And I have a lighting schedule. I basically threw something together with ChatGPT because I realized that all the lighting schedules I was using were real ones, and I figured someone would probably be watching and say, "That's my lighting schedule." I did not want to do that, so I created my own, which is kind of sad because it doesn't look like a lighting schedule. It looks like I don't know, a spreadsheet got printed, but what I'm going to talk through this process here and we'll talk it through. But the main thing I wanted to show right now are actually several things, but the first is just how to kick it off. By splitting out the pricing process flow or workflow to the bill of material workflow, we gained a lot. So the first thing that happens is if you bring it in here, there's a couple of things you can do. The first one is you have some control over what you would like the system to do. And one of the groups I was out training earlier this year, they have an intern. I didn't get back with them actually. They have an intern that basically is going in and updating specifier information on the jobs. And that's pretty much all this individual does. So they take the lighting schedule and they hand key it over and it's like, yeah, that's not much fun. Turns out he's going to school for tech and AI and stuff like that. So we had a good conversation. But I remember that individual. And what you can do is just have your intern, I guess, basically turn off these two so it doesn't do any work, but we'll update the specifiers. I'll leave it turned on so we can see what happens here. But what's nice is it'll go through and it'll read the specifiers and update the specifier section. It'll import the bill of material and perform a basic crossover. And I'll get in more detail on the crossovers probably later time, but might as well show you the details here. So when you kick this off, the other thing that happens is this may take a bit because there's a lot of different tech going on. And you'll see the little wiggly thing here going, and it's doing its thing. By the way, I've been playing this morning. And it's just trying to say, hey, convert document and import bill of material and per crossover, update specifiers from document. So that's basically what it's been told to do. So let's let it do its thing. The main thing is you can go over here and continue to work. So and do other things in there. You could add to the bill of materials here, I guess, stuff. May have already confused it. Yeah. Building materials is probably one area I want to stay away from. Yeah, it looks like I was updating about the same time I was. So anyway, it did the work that's in there, and looks like it's finally done. And I'm going to kind of go through what happened here. So there's really two things that were happening in this thing. First of all, I wanted to pull in the bill of material, but also wanted to do a cross. And when it did the cross, it was using my brands to bring them in. And every time I get in here, it seems like we have a new brand that's pulled in or changed or removed or whatever, because I'm not the only one that uses this database. But let's talk through what it does. The first thing it does bring in the quantity, fixture type, and the brand if it's mine, if it's what you represent. I'll go and bring in the brand. But it also gives some internal notes over here as well. We'll kind of go through those. Now, you also have the capability of pulling in and showing, and I'd probably do a layout. By the way, you can create layouts and save those in here as well. It's pretty neat. But if I go down here and do or show the spec brand and spec catalog, you can even pull these up if you like. Oh, spec brand, spec catalog. You see. Let me pull it right after there, just so I can take a look at it. Hit OK. All right, so spec brand did not come in here. I'm not sure why that's kind of weird that, oh yeah, I know why. It did some generics in there. So it did 8-foot linear architectural pendant and like or whatever. So it wasn't called out on the specs. So if you had a spec that said, acuity, center basket trough or something like that, the acuity part would show up on the left-hand side. But that's not what I put in there. It's just this type of stuff. And anyway, it's just a different way of looking at stuff. The main thing is the raw text appears here, which helps more crossover stuff I need to show you someday with Folio. I had a webinar on Folio a while back, but I need to have another one because there's been a lot of changes there. But it does pull it in so you can see what was on the plans, okay? Then it also shows some notes over here. What I like about this is that it shows assumes 2.5 aperture and some other details in here. By the way, you can click on it or F2 it now that we confirmed that does work. And it gives you all the notes that it found in there. So it's trying to give you a little more information about what it found on those plans on that fixture type. And then the description is a little more, again, more information that pulled off those plans. But then because I told it to do a cross, it did what it could to actually pull it over into an actual catalog number. Now, what I found is it does okay sometimes, and sometimes you sit there going, what are you doing? So you still have to watch this sucker because it's just like what I find when I'm coding Oasis using AI. When it works, it's pretty cool. When it doesn't, you're sitting there going, why did it do that? Now, one thing it will do is if it can't get down the catalog number, it will say something like family level because it couldn't confidently figure everything out, or there's just enough features in there that it really is kind of an apples and oranges, if you will. And then unfortunately, you're kind of back doing your thing. Now, last comment on here, and then I'll open up for questions is if I go through and do some super secret fixture or something like that, if you pull this all the way over into orders, then what Oasis will do is go one step further. So a lot of the crossing technology I showed right here was just simply using OpenAI because they can actually do a fair job. Sometimes I'm saying great job, a fair job at doing a cross. But if you pull this over and create an order, then we actually will start using that information based upon what we found on the bill of material to override what OpenAI is doing and actually utilize your data to do the cross. And there's a whole bunch of strategy in there that I need to actually start training some folks on. So look for a webinar coming up on that one. But anyway, neat stuff. Main thing is we look for the orders to pop off that because that's I sold it, and there's ways of seeing what you quoted before and kind of what's going on there. Kind of like the old crossover feature that we have in there. Which, by the way, I'm going to hang that menu back in here too. I had a couple of people saying, "Yeah, I kind of like the old crossover tool," but the new ones are just crazy wild. So, any questions on that?
Not on that, but I do have some questions in the chat for you. The first one being, does it lock in read-only mode when someone has a project open and working on it?
No. So the what we introduced, and we're still kind of getting feedback on this, is the capability of two people being there at the same time working. Now, I know this is going to cause some comments, and what I'll say is if you have a salesperson that doesn't have right access, they can't get past the edit button. In other words, they're stopped cold there. And then that allows your quoter to be in there doing their job. We don't have a full lockout. We've been discussing that on whether we can have a lock, and then you don't see anything until the quoter gets back in there and unlocks it. So that's something we're still arguing about internally on that one. But the main thing we're trying to get to, and I have a couple of groups trying to do this or trying to say this is the way to go, is I could have a salesperson and a quoter working together, tag teaming on a job, and that is something we do want to find a way to make happen for those groups that want to do that. And anyway, long story short is if you both have the ability to get in and edit the quote, you can both be in at the same time and it'll sort through all the changes for you. And anyway, it's weird to watch, but it's pretty cool. So did that pretty well answer the question or did I miss it?
I think so.
Okay.
The second one, and we've gotten this a few times, but I want you to touch on it as well. Will these updates be in desktop?
So Uh, Short answer is some of these we can't do in desktop easily. In other words, they'll be prohibitively expensive. So some of the AI features that I'll show here in a second, especially, will be kind of tricky to do in desktop. So they probably won't. The new look and feel and so a lot of these changes, my goal is to start looking at pulling those back into the desktop version sometime after the first of the year. That's probably going to be led initially with a lot of the reports. The reports I find are dramatically better when it comes to the online version as opposed to the desktop version. So getting those back in the desktop version for those running that will probably be the first one, and then this will probably be mid-year of next year to get some of these look and feel changes and some of these other tools in there. So, but yeah, desktop will follow this time, where in the past online has followed updates to tech. But don't get me wrong, desktop is not being forgotten. We do intend and we do still have smaller changes going this year when it comes to desktop. All right, next one.
All right. The next one is going to be, and this was asked earlier, on the totals. If you want to get rid of level 1, level 2, will it remember what you exit out of?
Yes, that is a user preference. And if you want them to come back, by the way, you just hit the little gearbox and make them come back. Good catch. Yeah, that's been that was a huge one right there. The fact we're not able to get that in the original release back in 2020 was frustrating for me. So, all right, any other
Next
questions?
question is, can you quickly review the conversations and workflows tab?
So workflow you're not supposed to see. So that's a super secret thing that we have working on that'll show up late this year. So Trinity's probably gonna walk over and kick my chair. Sorry. Conversations, real quick. So this is another one that I love training on when I'm out in showing folks. So conversations were developed I don't know 6 or 7 years ago now. The basic concept is we want threads in each project. Okay, so if you're used to something like Teams or that type of technology, that's really what we're trying to do here, and it gives you the ability to have a conversation about something on the job. And the way I usually train folks is begin by saying, okay, I want to see the sales team, and basically I need to know something about fixture. Let's see type A. Let's see type A. What color, temp, and mounting did you decide on? Okay, so they're doing some sort of work and they're working with the folks. I just sent that out now. Whoever's on this job as a salesperson, if they're not logged in, which they probably won't be, they'll get an email that says basically, example, basically whatever my project name is, type A. What color, temp, and mounting did you decide on? So if they're on their iPhone, they can click on the little thing there, pop into this conversation and say, still working with Bob. Remember Bob? Okay, so you can kind of have these conversations back and forth. And then that kind of, well, it doesn't kind of, this gives you the ability to document what's going on inside the project, and it's there for everybody to see. So the quoter gets to see it, the salespeople get to see it, including anybody in the future that has to go back and unwind this project to figure out what in the devil happened. So little tip on this one, since I showed it, I recommend each thread be basically a fixture type, a pricing strategy. That's what I've been training on here recently is people trying to do pricing strategies to include accounting. So sometimes you want to build the controls and before or after and the startup and everything. So that'll probably be in a pricing area on here. And in controls is another area. So come up with your standards out here. It doesn't have to be exact, but as long as you're kind of consistent on that, then it's really easy to find out what's going on here. So. All right,
Next question is, and I did link the video for conversations for more in-depth. It'll look different, but everything's functions very similar. The next question is, will we have access to the cross data we have in the legacy system? I did answer this a bit. I said yes, it helps our AI learn from your data, but stays in your database. But anything else to add on that?
Nope, that's exactly correct. So there's again, I need to have a regular webinar on that because there's a lot of ways to influence the AI. sometimes to your detriment, so be careful. But that is part of the the old crossover tables are part of it, and they work the same. So you can prime the pump, so to speak, and it'll help you with the crosses. So, all right. So that's any other questions?
Just a little bit more clarification on manufacturer integrations. I was typing up a response, but
Nope.
for
I'll have
that
that.
question, we're working with them, and I'll post the link where we will post when they have connectivity online.
Perfect. Yep. You probably went a little deeper than I did. So I'll touch on that again here too. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I looked at the time and got a little freaked out.
No questions, but there is one thing that you didn't show that I think everybody here would like for you to show, and that would be project history.
That's your favorite. Let me make sure I'm
It
not going
is
to miss
my
anything.
favorite.
Hang on a second. Oh, I got to show my favorite. Let me go back to my example here. Did this one for purpose. There it is. All right, cool. Let me get rid of them, go into edit mode. And so let me see. No, I want to do this. I can never find it in the menu. So a couple things. First is Trinity want to show the project history. So under views, we're adding more. I almost call them reports, but they're kind of tools, if you will. And one of them is the project history. And this begins a timeline to show you what's happened in this project over time. This one probably will make sense because it's kind of a junk test environment, but it does allow me to actually identify everything that happened to that project over time. So it remembers the bill of material at a given time and who is working on it, the value at that point in time as well. And it's just one detail after another inside here. By the way, there's some controls up here allow you to turn things on or off based on what it's found. And if I had orders, I could actually identify the order information in here as well, really just giving me the ability to give a top level unwind. A lot of people have been using this with the attachments, which is nice. By the way, attachments can show in here as well. You can turn those on or off. And let me see if I can. Yep, there's a quote attachment. I broke that PDF, I guess. But it'll actually show you the PDF here minus the little test thing I was doing the other day. But but anyway, neat little tool, really simple to use, literally giving you a timeline to see what happened and when. And it's not uncommon to see, hey, why did we send the order and then the breakout? It's like, oh, yeah, we had to do a hold for release to get drawings or something like that. And you can see what's going on in those details there. So neat little tool. Okay, go back into my project bill of material here, and I'll show the, let me see, did I go to the right place? Copy bid. Oh, I know what I did. I went over there. Look over here, edit, back into this, show the last little item on this. Oop. I'm using a mouse pad nowadays, and it makes me frustrated. All right, so we want to stop right here for a second and simply say, hey, this was kind of neat. And let me see, did I put customers on here real quick? Got A-Light, they're assigned to a level, that's fine. Sorry, I'm kind of prepping things a little bit. So what I wanted to show real quick, everything I showed will be available probably this week, unfortunately, because of some technologies changed on the great old internet. I'm hoping to wait until the 11th because there's still a few things that I have on the short list to work on there. But once that's out, then with our beta customers, we're going to start working on the next thing, and that is this. So I real quickly showed this. And there's this bottom line down here that you won't see when this comes out. This is only going to be for the beta users for a while. And let's see what I sold. Let's say 15. All right, send. So literally, it gives you the ability to have a little agent in here that can do some of the work for you automatically. Now, if I did it right, this thing is still in training mode here. I'm basically throwing all this into the everything I've done over the past 20 some years. I'm in the process of training this little bot, and yeah, I didn't do it quite right. Let me double check here. Oh, yep. Till I get it turned through the OpenAI environment, I'm having to use a little training system that isn't quite as language proficient is the best way to explain it. So it's a little more terse. But the main thing is we're going through and making it where it'll go through and basically do the spread profit. So it said looking for the column for the spread profit using sell column, increase the sell price by $7,400. And at that point, it's basically repriced. Basically, it did a spread profit for me. There's a little issue where it doesn't pull a couple of things in here. Oh yeah, I know what it did. So anyway, long story short, I still got to work on that one. It didn't update. It didn't save the checkpoint, so it didn't keep it. Did it? Nope, it did it. It's a refresh issue. So anyway, minus the refresh, that's one of the little things that we're working on out there is to get some of the speed. The toolbar up here, the totals doesn't update all the time. So I'm trying to change that up a little bit. But the main thing I wanted to identify there is there's this whole agent that we're rolling out. This will appear in August initially with the ability for you to type in here, and that's when it'll actually have the OpenAI backend. It'll understand the English a lot better than the little training harness that I have it on right now. So anyway, that's a cool thing coming up, and that's what we're working on. There'll be some other stuff where you can say, hey, send me a quote, review the project for problems. Long story on that one. I'm training it on what I believe it should be in there. There's a lot of cool stuff. And then again, one of my mentors will say, mop up the quote and create the final quote for review. It'll tell you what it's doing. And if you disagree, you can always say, nope, cancel, and then toss all those changes. Okay. All right, real quick, I'm running close on time. Status reports online. The dev, there's still a bit of dev going on those complex reports I was talking about last time. Basically, there's the order summary reports and the order the line level customizable line level. So customizable summary reports and customizable line level reports. Those two sets of reports, that's quotes, orders, invoices, and payments, they're still internally testing. They're just complicated, but it looks like they will definitely go to beta this coming month. It's just right now they probably won't make the July release out there, so it'll be part of the August release. So that includes all of them. Some of these I don't have enough time to go into, but we're doing some reviews. Basically, we're pulling some of those reports into more interesting solutions, and I'll have to just show that in another webinar. Okay, so last item I wanted to save a little bit of time. So especially with the August release, I think it's time to start talking about people going online only. Watch in my support team out here, our support team out here will watch customers use a VPN to access Oasis desktop, and it's painful to watch. The online version is definitely way better in that scenario. So if you have a remote users where everything is remote, and especially if you do not have manufactured connectivity, the deep connectivity that was being asked about, then our recommendation is to start considering it. Talk to us, because August may be a time to start switching and really just being done with the servers, being done with the desktop installers, and basically you can use your iPad and go to work. So that's where we're at with this. It's come a long way. It's been a lot of work. AI has really helped us speed up tremendously there, but we need to start talking about that. For everybody else that has deep connectivity, or manufacturers have deep connectivity, that takes work for us to certify. It's not something you just tell AI and it happens. That's already in process for a number of the manufacturers, and that'll start rolling out to beta users probably over the next month. There's a couple of things I know of that may kind of wiggle that a little bit, but our goal is by late summer, there'll be a group of the major manufacturers that will be done, and we'll be saying the same things, like it's probably time to start talking about that. Ever so often, there's something that a group has utilized that we forgot about that's important. But again, we want to work with you on that. Make sure we get all those little subtle details that you're used to using in desktop Oasis in the online version. But the main thing is it's time to start talking about this, especially if you're over a VPN, because it's way faster. And if you're using a remote desktop and you have an old server, that stuff is expensive. Online is going to be cheaper for you too. So it's really time to start talking about these things. All right, I went a little bit long, 1 minute long. Important dates, basically July 11th is the next big release, give or take. The internet forcing us to do that like this week. And then August 8th, that is a big release, and that's when I really think some of these groups that are no major manufacturer connectivity probably need to start thinking about moving online and be done with it. So, all right, questions?
The only one we have is there a limitation for accessing attachments in the online version, or is that set individually by an agency? I think what's happening, or why that you're asking, is we offer price breaks to get your database smaller on the online version by only syncing a certain amount of attachments to the online version. If you're online only, you would have to have all your attachments there because there's nothing to not sync it, if that makes sense. If not, I'm more than happy to jump on a call with you and discuss more. And then
Yeah, I
at
actually have
some,
I have a little bit more
yeah,
on
go
that
ahead.
one. So some of you all are doing 100 meg, let me see, 500 meg and gig size attachments. They probably will upload, but if your internet's not very good, it probably won't. But yeah, it'll accept a bit. We don't do any throttling there, and that may be something we can look at as far as spotting users that are trying to just upload really big stuff, saying stop. So that's something I've had under consideration, but it will do it. This screen, by the way, will be updated or redesigned to include the old Oasis tree. It's not quite there yet, and until we're really ready to release it, this will look not quite as good as desktop, but it does all the same features. So.
And then one question somebody asked, will we stop supporting desktop users? That is definitely not in our plan. As long as our on-prem vendors support on-prem databases, we will be supporting desktop Oasis.
Yeah, we've made some massive investment in the desktop version of Oasis, and that will continue. One of them is we're moving from the Sybase database to Postgres. Anybody who has a large database has probably already been contacted by our team. It simply works better. It was a lot of work for us to do that. It's a lot of work for us to support, but it works for a number of our users, so it will not go away. And it's also part of a bigger strategy for some of our customers with some of the things they're doing, and kind of bite my tongue there because that's a long conversation. But no, it's not going to go away anytime soon. So if
And
it
then
ever
the
does.
last thing, not really a question, but more so geared towards something we're very aware of. They would go to online once the manufacturer connectivity is there, and we also agree we're working closely with manufacturers to get it there.
Yeah, I think
And then,
most. I think
oh, go ahead.
I think most manufacturers with deep connectivity will be done by late summer. We're talking like September-ish timeframe. There's one that is a little tricky for some reasons, but outside that, we should be good to go. So.
And one last question. Will you allow OneDrive links to link to the network to take load size off of the database?
So, quick answer is I don't know how to answer that question right now. The technology in the browser works dramatically different. So I cannot generically, and again, with enough money, anything's feasible, but I cannot generically take the attachments here and link to the physical drive. Basically, a browser works in basically a container, if you will, a soapbox or sandbox, I guess is what they call it. So they're all soapboxy about talking about this, but it's a sandbox, and it's walled off. In other words, it's difficult for us to programmatically hit your hard drive or your desktop or anything like that. And that's for a good reason, because you don't want any website to go in there and take over your desktop. That would be a bad day. So what we have to do a OneDrive or any other implementation like that is actually go to their site, and that is something I've looked at and is a possibility. But we're just not ready to commit to that right now. I'm trying to make sure we get all the other pieces in play first, but that's I guess the best way to explain that is that's not off the table. And what I'd want to do if we go with especially the Microsoft solution is make that part of the standard package if we do that. So Talked all the way around that one, I know, but it's a tricky one. It doesn't work anything like the desktop version. It's basically, I mean, night and day. It's like horse-drawn carriage versus a spaceship or something like that. It's totally different.
And then one person or a few people were asking if we can not directly connect to file storage, but if they can link it in conversations. Yeah, putting a link in the conversations is a way around that.
Well, in desktop, again, the
Well,
browser, you can't do that. That's a no-no. Yeah, because the browser's in the sandbox, there's no way for us to drive that link back to the desktop. It's just a big time no-no. And that's by the browser guys, not us. All right.
and
Any
I
other
think
questions?
that's all the questions so far.
All right. Well, I do appreciate your attention. I'm super excited on this. Like I tell the folks around here is like when you're standing within striking distance of a customer training them, you want to make sure it works. And I've been doing that and continue to do that all summer. As a matter of fact, I'm scheduled to go back out this month again, and it works. There's always bumps with software. That's the way it is. But when I was sitting there training the quotes team with the last place I was at, and it just felt right, I really started getting excited. That's where we're at with this. It is a really neat system. It works the way Oasis is supposed to work. And there's still a few screens in there that operate like they did 6 years ago, but that's changing quickly. So anyway, getting long-winded again. I do appreciate your time. If you have any questions of us, let us know. We will be here to answer them. Thank you.